Good morning, my YouTube beauties. I hope you had a restful night. I know I did. I always do. But rest and sleep is important. And if anyone's interrupting that, no good. People have this myth idea that when you're an adult, you don't need sleep, when actually the body needs 6 to 8 hours sleep. I know for me, when I don't get my full 6 hours, guess what? When I go home from work, nap. I'm trying not to take naps because what ends up happening is I go to sleep like 11, 12, and I have to wake up at 5 in the morning, 5:15-ish, 5:30 the latest. 5:30 is kind of pushing it because then I gotta rush. But 5:15 is the time I set my alarm. So therefore I need to be asleep by 10. I should be sleeping. But sometimes I'm not tired until 12 or 1 because I done took a nap. So, and it's like, it's so early for me. But I digress. So I wanted to talk about society, and I had spoke about it before, but I wanted to speak about it again. And the reason why things are the way they are is what people don't realize is because of religion. And we don't realize, like, a lot of, homophobia. They like, why are people homophobic? Religion. Why do people say, women are supposed to be a certain way? Religion. So at a certain point, you have to understand that there's nothing wrong with religion, but sometimes it could be taken over a bit, it could be taken to an extent that's not right. So previously I talked about promiscuity amongst men and women, but today the topic on hand is, why is it that when, so previously I talked about the Vanderbilt rape, whatever, and that comes from, the idea of group sex and all that, whatever. When men participate in that, they call it group sex, threesomes, they just having fun. When a girl now does it, they say, oh, it's a train run on her, right? So from a very, very young age, my mother's old school, so of course she told me, stay a virgin till you're married. And you have men that agree with that. I remember having at least one or two guys that said, oh, that's good. Like, more mothers should teach their daughters that. Mind you, these men were hoes, like, that said this to me. They was out there. So it was just interesting that they felt like that's a good teaching when, to be honest, that's not realistic. Like, I don't have a daughter, I have a son, but even if I had a daughter, I would never say that because that's not practical. It's not even about, that was never the world that we lived in. People say, oh, nowadays. My mother is the only one that did that. Like, my friends' parents from the same generation, nobody kept themselves until marriage beside my mother. My mother is the only person that did that. And not saying it's a bad thing, but it worked for her, And then, so what works for her, but that don't work for everybody. Because even when you do stay true, or when you do whatever, it don't always work out. Hence, example, Tia Mowry. She kept herself till marriage. She did it the Lord's way, and they're divorced now. Megan Good, I actually purchased the book with her and her husband, and where are they now? Divorced. So it's a perfect example of there's no right and wrong when it comes to that. When somebody is meant for you, they meant for you. Today I was listening to Andre 3000. I don't know if y'all remember the album, The Love Below. There's an interlude on the album, and it's so good because it's so funny and it's so true. Basically, he meets a girl, and she's like, dang, he gonna think I'm a hoe because we had sex. And then he responds, and they basically talking to themselves. So And it happens. Sometimes you have sex with somebody and you're like, damn. And then you start thinking and overthinking and regretting it. But the reality is, if you're meant to be with that person, you'll be with that person. If not, you won't. You know, I know a friend who I would say she's a very good girl. You know, she's not perfect, but she's the type of girl, she'll make you wait 6 months. And the whole time that I knew, you know, we're not friends now, but when, you know, the whole time that I was close to her, not one of the dudes she dated wanted to be in a relationship with her. Not one. And this was for 7-8 years. And she would make them wait 6 months or whatever. And they did not want to be with her. And even in my own little experiences, I'm not saying you should just give it up right away all the time, but that's not going to make or break. With a man, whatever idea he has in his head or what he's going to do with you, it has nothing to do with you. He already had it in his head. This is what's this gonna be like. You know, if he has it in his head that he's never going to take you serious, he could marry you and still treat you like the side chick. And we see that over and over again. How many cases do we know? How many people do we know personally of the girl started out as a side chick, had 2-3 kids for him, lived with him, in some cases got married, but what happened? He left her at home. He was never really with her, right? She was never really number one in his life. Hence, he got married to her. Hence, so once a man have an idea of how he see you and view you in life, there's nothing that you as a woman could do. You know, how many women get married and Valentine's Day come, their birthday comes, Mother's Day come, he's not taking you nowhere. He's taking the other bitch somewhere. So you might be the girlfriend or the wife, but obviously you're not, because he's with someone else during those special moments, you know. So we've gotten so hooked up on society and what others think that we lose ourselves in what's right and what's wrong. You know, perfect example, Omarion said it yesterday. It came on Instagram, and I thought it was just so disturbing. He's 38 years old, talking about something he don't think it's practical for a man to be with one woman. It's like you almost 40, but I bet you if that girl got more than one man, he'll be mad. You know, and the reason why there's an issue with that is because what happens when you start falling for people, when you start catching feelings, and you're one man. You can't be with 2 women on Valentine's Day. You can't be with 2 women on Christmas unless if you split the day. One gets you in the morning, one gets you at night. And then eventually it's going to be tiring. It's going to be like, and one of them is going to love you more than the other one. That's just, you know, and then you're going to be forced to choose eventually. Eventually. So that concept makes no sense. Just like you have in some cultures, the woman is faithful to the man, and the man got like 10 concubines. How is he going to be there for them? How is he going to do for them? It's not practical. He could probably be there for them financially, but relationship, and that also, in those cultures that do that, they don't date. Those men are not catering to those women. That's a westernized belief. And thank God for the westernized belief system, because Western belief is you catering to your woman, not just your woman catering to you. What about her needs? What about her being satisfied emotionally, sexually? Doesn't that matter? You know, so all of that should matter, right? If you're talking about a relationship. And the sad part about it is we have a lot of men who have no idea what a relationship is. A relationship is not, or a marriage shouldn't be 2 people raising kids and a woman cooking and cleaning for you. That's a living servant. That's a living maid when you think about it. The only time you see your wife is when she's at the stove. Y'all have sex, but y'all not really enjoying it. It's kind of like something to do. She not wearing no lingerie. You not looking sexy. You ain't working out. You ain't doing nothing with yourself. Y'all not going out on dates. Y'all don't go nowhere. Y'all don't even take the kids nowhere because y'all so tired with life. Who wants that? Who wants that? Not I. So that's my challenge for people, is to don't go by what society is teaching you. Don't even go by what the Bible is teaching you, to be honest, because the Bible don't say nothing about romance. It talks about Song of Solomon, and he talk about a woman's body parts, but the Bible doesn't really teach men how to be partners. It doesn't, and it's sad, and it raises a question, like, why don't we matter as women? Why don't our feelings matter of what we want? That's something we had to create on our own as millennials. Millennial men, they understand that. Generation X, they understand that. But I always thought about the older generation, like my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my mother. They never enjoyed. Yeah, so time and time again, women are always being told what to do. Well, we're told to have children. When we don't have the amount of children that people think we should have, that's bad. When we have over the amount that people, if you have 4 or 5 kids, people got something to say. If you're married, people got something to say. If you're not married, people got, whatever women do, people always have something to say. Now, if a man is a bachelor and he living his life, they look up to that. People look up to that. There's no pressure. But when you're a woman, it's like everything we do is pressure. And that has to do with religion. It really does. A few people were criticizing the Marians, and then they referred to the Bible. I'm like, King David had concubines. King David had multiple wives. So that's where he's getting that from. Our ancestors, we all come from Africa. They had multiple wives. That's where the idea comes from. Comes from women being, a certain way, and that's that. Just like my favorite in woman in history is Cleopatra, not just because she was beautiful and everything like that, but I have you to know Cleopatra the 8th, she was forced to marry her cousin, but then she left her cousin to be with somebody else. She made her own decisions. And some people might say, in history, they say she was difficult, she was out there, but at the end of the day, she made her own decisions. She made her own decisions, and I could respect that. She had 3 baby daddies, but that was because she was forced to marry her cousin. She left him to be with someone else, and then she also dated and was romantically involved with Mark Antony. They say that's the reason for the fall of the Egyptian Empire. Of course, they blame her for it. But, yeah, she was a woman who stood up for what she wanted and what she believed in. She's like, I'm not going to stay married to my cousin because y'all said so. She moved on and she lived her life accordingly. And that's what you're supposed to do, And when a woman does that, it's, it's looked down upon. Even in today's society, with my little experience, you tell people you're a single mom, you're not with a father, they act like they never heard of that. So I'm supposed to stay with somebody I don't like. I'm supposed to stay with somebody who I have to take care of him like he's a baby. What does that do for me? I want to be with a man who could, put something into me that could at least help me out. That can at least, bring something to the table. take me out to eat, take me, and do stuff and be an impartation, not somebody that I have to take care of. That's, and how many of us have been raised, or you hear older women say, get with a man who likes you, don't get with a man you like. That's wrong. You know what happens in a relationship like that? What ends up happening is that men pick up on that and they start to resent you and you start to resent him. That's all that ends up happening. So you end up being an old couple, been together 50 years, but y'all don't like each other because y'all never liked each other. They ask on Instagram and all these social medias, why don't marriage work out? Why don't relationships work out? You know why? 9 times out of, I would say about 7 times out of 10, it's because they don't like each other. Because think about it. When you're in a friendship and it's lasting, you've been friends with somebody, some people blessed enough to be friends with somebody 10, 20 years. Why is the friendship long? Because you like each other. That's the foundation. Y'all got stuff in common, y'all like each other, right? That's why you have friendships for 10, 20, 30 years. It's not science. It's not something that, what makes a friendship last long? Because you fucking like the person. You like being around them. You have things in common. And it's the same thing you need for a long-term relationship. Why do some relationships last longer than the other? It's different reasons. You can't say, well, this person married for 30, 40 years and they last long. She might be there for financial stability. She might be there because she feels like she cannot financially take care of herself. She may not have the intelligence to live on. That takes intelligence to live on your own and do for yourself. That's a skill that nobody could teach you. So she might be there for that reason. Or he may be there with her because it's a safety net. It's she's gonna always do my laundry. She's gonna always cook. She's gonna always be there. It's not necessarily a love thing, but I know she's good. He's good. But what do y'all do? Do y'all even have a conversation? Hey, how was your day? Oh, what's your favorite team? I like not to throw shade, but I always look at my parents and I'm like, that's such a horrible example of a marriage. Like, I want to be able to watch football with my husband and we rooting for teams. And I don't like basketball, but I would want to be that wife to come with him to the games. And understandable, you got your friends, but I think that's important to have things in common. Like, that's so important. You have to have things in common. If you don't have anything in common, you're not going to be friends. And if you're not friends first, what are you doing? You have to have more than just physical attraction. You got to have things in common. You got to be able to have a solid conversation with somebody. And how do you know that? Is if a couple of weeks and months go by and you just, hey, I just wanted to talk to you. If you don't feel the urge to do that, you probably shouldn't be dating the person. Or if you, like in my previous relationship, or every time you talk to a person, it seems like y'all can't just get along. Or y'all get along, but it's like their mentality is just way off. Little things like that, But we as a society, we have to change the way we think. We have to, it just doesn't make sense. And then what ends up happening is all this dysfunction, and it starts with you. It starts with who you're around. It starts with your children and what you're teaching them. You don't teach somebody, get with a girl who likes you, not if you like her. Because you got guys, which I didn't know until recently, you got men who settle too for a girl they really didn't want. with good reason. But because they've been taught, oh, you know, she's down for you, she loves you, oh, that's the one. No, if she doesn't come to your standard, or if she's not what you originally wanted, don't settle, because what's going to end up happening, you're going to end up cheating on her. You're going to end up mistreating her, because that's not who you really wanted. You know, time and time again. Now, you do have some men who cheat regardless. But a lot of the times it be because that girl that they with, they don't really want them. It's just she's bossy, and everybody telling him, oh, she's a good girl. You know, same thing with females. They like, you know, why she treat him bad? Trust me, she got a reason. It's something about him that you don't see. You know. So let's do that. Let's not follow what our parents did, which most of us don't, but can't follow society and religion. Live life for yourself. And those are my thoughts.